Hello everybody and welcome to the batch review for the New World event on Jumputi Heroes. Really, it was kind of less of a New World event and more of a Hunter x Hunter slash One Piece mini festival steal stuff from the Taiwan version of the game event. But we'll ignore that. We got some cool characters added. We're going to review their skills. We're going to review the skills for the characters that got upgraded to 6-star during this event. And we're going to review, of course, the new Legend Summon, the Supernova Trio. So, we can't start out with any standard gacha. We're going to start with the limiteds. Let's start with Kurapika. Kurapika, his front line is essentially the Red's Giorno. He does reversal damage, which, if you don't remember, is damage that increases based on your HP. The difference between your current HP and your max HP. So the lower your health is, the higher your damage will be, with of course being the absolute maximum of you having 1 HP, it will do the absolute best damage it can do. These type of skills do have uses. They definitely do have uses. I gotta say, even though I was really gassed about getting Giorno, and I have jawed him up to level 12, and you know, he does do very good damage, he's a very good unit, I don't use him anywhere near as much as I would like to use him, especially for the character that he is and the fact that I've jawed him. I really wanted to get some more use out of him. I don't use him that often. I find in a lot of stages, it just benefits me more to have a character that specifically counters that stage's gimmick and is going to deal damage based on the gimmicks on the stage and stuff like that. So if you have a character that does boosted damage to a certain class, or you have a unit that does some sort of buffing, some sort of weakening, whatever, reversal is kind of just like, it's damage plus damage. Technically, reversal damage is like fixed. So it will bypass guard, it will bypass barrier, it will bypass damage reduction. So it does have that going for it. And when you're in a pinch, you're going to be doing more damage, which is kind of good, especially with some of the stages where you're going to be getting hit down, down, down. And it's when you're in that situation of having low HP that the next attack is normally really quite hard and you need to be able to beat them before they attack you. So there are situations, obviously, where he is good. I think possibly the place they shine best is last row in PvP, simply because that's the place where you're going to have low HP. That's the place where they are going to be hitting. I know it's reduced to 5%, but when you consider how much HP is boosted in tower, it works out. It does work out. And 4th row in PvP, realistically, if you're a top tier player, is the row that you don't want to have to use. You put the character there that is going to finish the job. In an ideal world, you don't have to rely on them. But if you do have to rely on them, they will finish the job. And that's what Kurapika, in theory, would do for you. The passive, however, does make him quite interesting compared to, say, a Giorno. Again, very, very PvP forward. Not to say that this couldn't be used in PvE, though. The 99% counter guard is, you know, obviously counter is a big issue in PvP if you come up against certain characters, but that deals with that right there. But the fact that Kurapika has that, and in addition to that, has Cyclone damage reduction, which 3500 in PvE is not bad. You can still, you know, you can get by with 3500. I don't know how many stages actually have Cyclone. I mean, obviously, the one jumps to my head, Ryzen. Kurapika would probably be quite nice for that. But it's not that common in PvE. Realistically, the place you're seeing it is Tower. It's quite common in Tower. So reducing that, 5,000 in Tower, but it actually goes up to 350,000. 350,000 is substantial. I don't know what kind of damage Cyclone absolute maxes out at. Obviously, there are situations where people could absolutely pummel you with skill bubbles with Rao or someone like that, and just decimate you with cyclone damage. But you know, 350,000 is nothing to be upset about. That's a lot. That is a lot. Sad that obviously they have to have a specific skill ability that's active in PvP compared to PvE, but we're getting more and more units like that, so I'm kind of getting used to it. I'm getting used to it. And the unconditional attack boost is obviously a little bit small, but considering Kurapika already has 2 other abilities on passive, we can accept that, I think. All in all, great for PvP. We'll see some use in PvE. I'm undecided on him as a unit. Obviously, I'm not pulling specifically for any of the characters in this event, even though there's only really 2 gacha, simply because of the event that's coming next. But, assuming Kimetsu no Yaiba was not next, I may have been tempted by Kurapika. I like the character, and I feel like reversal as a gimmick is gonna go somewhere in the future. It's gonna snowball effect, you know. As more characters get it, they'll add more stages where it's good to use it on, and they might add some more support for it and stuff like that. Like, that's what it feels like to me anyway. The only downside here that may seriously affect his last ability is the buddy skill. It's a 7-turn cooldown, 1-turn attack boost for red team members of 58%. The reason this is not that great, because 58% is quite a large percentage, it's just there is an issue of there being lots of standard gacha units from even 2018, 2019 that boost by about 40%, something like that. I think some of them might even go as far as 50, I'm not sure, but regardless, you can get pretty close to this on a standard gacha unit that you can get dupes of from the 5-star tickets, from choice tickets, whatever. So, for this to be a limited buddy skill, especially when you consider how strong some of the buddy skills are on these limits. I mean, you saw how I talked about Tezuka's buddy skill. I use that quite often. The fact that this is so weak, and the attack boost itself could be fine in the situation where it was part of another skill. Like, if it created a skill bubble and then this attack boost, that would be huge. If it had like other effects, anything, then maybe. Like, even if it just like cleared some bubbles, that would be something. But it doesn't. It just doesn't. So, a lot of the time when we talk about limiteds, one of the big things is if I'm going to spend enough rubies to do 9 multis on this character, I want to be able to use them for a long time. And in a lot of cases, that is true. Not just as a support, but as a front line. But a lot of the time, even if a character doesn't have the best front line, even if it has a good front line, as long as their buddy skill is super solid, there is a lot of last ability there. You will continue to use that character's buddy skill for the foreseeable future, regardless of whether they're suitable on front line or not. And with Kurapika, that's just not going to be the case. So really, you're back in Reversal doing bits for you, either in PvP or down the line if Reversal gets some support. And you're back in his passive, which is a very nice passive. All in all, he's a good unit. He is a good unit. The kit is just not for me. It's just not. I like Reversal in concept. In practice, I've not really got as much use out of it as I would like. The buddy skill is not good enough for a limited. And the passive, there's a lot going on there, and I don't necessarily hate any of it. It's just, as a whole package, Kurapika's not for me as a unit. Let's talk about Rayleigh, the other limited. Rayleigh, I like his kit a lot more. I like his kit a lot more because it's a bit more... Well, the front line has more utility for a start. Because yes, it ignores damage reduction just like Kurapika's does. Bear in mind, Kurapika will also ignore guard and barrier. And the overall damage will work out higher because Rayleigh caps at 525. Kurapika, while he only caps at 490, is doing that extra reversal damage, which if your HP is low, it's going to be pretty big. And I've looked here before, I've looked at the numbers. You can get Kurapika's damage. I looked at Giorno's, but you know, it's the same thing. you can get reversal damage in the right situation very, very high. Very, very high. But, but, I think Rayleigh's damage 525, very good, very good. You know, pretty standard for a limited, but still good. Ignoring damage reduction is a nice little bonus. And negating the one strongest attack boost on that enemy, very nice. That is something that has quite palatable use. I look at that and I say, I can see lots of places I use that. There's so many stages with attack up. There's so many enemies in PvP that are going to have attack up. I can see lots of times that I would want to use that. So for me, that's a big selling point. The passive. Boosts this unit's attack by up to 19%. This unit is immune to bubble extension, and when your HP is 65% or less, reduce the number of bubbles required to create a skill bubble for this unit by 2. I quite like this simply because, yes, okay, there's a HP restriction on it. Not a big fan of that, considering the attack boost 19%. Like, could maybe been a bit higher if you're going to put a restriction on the second part of the passive, but okay, we'll accept it. When your HP is 65 or less, reducing the number of bubbles required to create a skill bubble by 2 for this unit. That means there will be pinch situations where you're low HP, and he's going to bring that down to 5. Additionally, having the immunity to bubble extension means that there are stages where you will get your bubble extension turned all the way up. Kizaru, the stage where you farm Luffy, is an example of that. He will put it all the way up to 99 at one point. That doesn't affect Rayleigh. And if your HP is low, he is also going to reduce it by 2. So all the other units on your team will be 99. And he will be 5. 5 bubbles to create a skill bubble. Not too shabby, not too shabby. Again, I don't think this is a super standout ability for a limited. But I think in general, his frontline comes together as quite good for general use. Even, say, like 5 years down the line, when his damage has kind of fallen off a little bit and whatever, the attack boost negation is quite nice. I always like that on a limited because I'm not bringing along a character for utility to do the job. I'm bringing on a unit that can do half decent damage and can do that utility as well. So I like that, and the passive it's okay. It's quite nice. It's okay. The buddy skill compared to Kurapika, I like this much more. Free turn boost to attack and ultimate attack damage of yellow and green by 21%. So 2 different types, 2 different boosts by 21%. Very good. And for 1 turn, reduce the number of bubbles required to create a skill bubble for yellow and green team members by 3, 9-turn cooldown. So I've said this in the past. I'm always kind of torn between like the 1-turn reduction and the 3-turn reduction, because if all you're using it to do is get rid of the bubble extension, then it doesn't matter. But if you're using it as a utility to try and help your team out, then this is only active for 1 turn, so the other one would be slightly better if it was for 3 turns by 1 rather than 1 turn by 3. But don't get me wrong, this is good, this is good. That turn, you will have that buff, which will again go on for another 2 turns, and you'll be reduced down to by 3. So 4 bubbles to create a skill bubble. That's pretty good. And I think it's hard to say that this is like a top tier passive. Sorry, support. It's a good one. It's definitely a good one. But like a lot of limiteds now have really fucking good supports. So his support being pretty good. Realistically, it's hard for me to say this is bad when you compare it to Kurapika's, because Kurapika's support is way worse. So I'm going to say this is a good support. I quite like it anyway. The 3-turn boost to both attack and ultimate attack damage is going to result in quite a nice amount of damage boost overall. Plus the bubble reduction. If you think of it the other way around, I know this part of the skill comes up first, but think about it the other way around. You've got bubble extension on your team right now. You use this to get rid of the bubble extension, and then for the next 3 characters in your team, they only need 4 bubbles to create a skill bubble for that turn, and for the next 3 turns they've got a boost of up to 21% in their ultimate attack and attack damage. That's really nice. That's really nice. So I mean, realistically, out of the 2, it was difficult for me. Like I said, I wouldn't be pulling on this event properly anyway. But I quite like both characters, and I was really gassed when Rayleigh got added to Taiwan and Kurapika, even though it's really just like a very tweaked, costumed version of the Kurapika we already have. I would be drawn towards both as characters. I would be drawn to pull both as characters. But in terms of the skill set, I think Rayleigh's is more general, but I quite like what it brings to the table. Kurapika's... the buddy skill is just a letdown. I gotta be honest, the buddy skill's a letdown, okay? I don't really give a shit about PvP, and that's a big part of Kurapika's appeal. And the buddy skill, why couldn't it have just been a bit better? Why couldn't it have just been a bit better? But if I was gonna summon for these, I would go for Rayleigh, personally. I have no interest in getting good in PvP. I occasionally tweak my team to make it better. But generally, I don't want to play PvP. Not until they add some cool stuff for me to buy in the shop. Because I don't really care about what's in there right now. But the free units, we have Crollo first. I really, really love the costume for Crollo here. Again, I say costume rather than new unit because it is just really a costume of the one we had before. My personal opinion is this one should have been the limited. You could make arguments either way, but I think this is a design that most people would say is more popular. Like, if you'd released the original Crollo as a farmable and then released this one as a limited, I think that would have been better. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe people would disagree. But I love this design way more. And this like arc is so hype. It is so hype. When he's fighting against the Zoldycks and stuff, and bro, it's gas. So, like, it's cool that he's been added to the game. And I saw he's being added, and I was like, maybe I could use him as a 99 luck lead now. You know, this could be cool. The only issue is he kind of isn't great. He kind of isn't great. Okay, so we've talked about this before. Poison, despite being a day 1 debuff, still has very little support. Poison units are not that common. They seem to be having a sort of like comeback. We've had a few different characters added that do poison now. But we still don't have any sort of additional support for poison. It's the damage is gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay, I guess. Just for me, it's like it's not all that. Let's assume you stack it for 2 turns and you're doing 212% poison damage per turn. You continuously stack them each turn. For me, it's not that. It's not. Look, they can add support to any debuffs they want, but the debuffs they seem to support right now are burn, and that's about it. They don't support freeze. They don't support cyclone. They don't support shock. Sure, they've added a few characters from each, and you could go back and say they've added a few characters that do bomb damage, a few characters that do poison damage, and stuff like that, but they're like, yo, burn! We're going to have loads of super powerful burn characters, and we're going to have burn weakening that no other debuff has weakening. They have in the files icons for weakening for freeze, weakening for shock, weakening for all these other ones, bomb and poison included. But so far, the only one that's come out is Katakuri, burn weakening. Don't know why. Don't know why. But you have an array of burn units to choose from. You have some that do 3 turns of burn damage, some that do 2 turns, some that do 1 turn. They all do shitloads of damage when they work together as a team, and then you have units that do boosted damage to burn, and it's awesome. I would like more of that on other different debuffs, but you know what? Poison damage is not that great. Crollo is not that great for his ultimate attack. Simple as. Reduce the number of bubbles. No, reduce the number of turns of bubbling effectiveness for this unit by 2, and boost this unit's attack by up to 21%. It's okay. It's okay. For a catastrophe, it's okay. It's to be expected. Nothing special. Buddy skill. burst up to 14 bubbles. You got him at max level. 14 blue and green bubbles. And reduce the number of turns of weakening for blue and yellow team members by 1. I really like this because when you look at some of the like Genkai battle stages, and assuming that going down the line, maybe we get more Genkai battles, we are supposed to be getting more hard, difficult content. They said towards the end of autumn they'd be releasing difficult content that will perhaps require people to try and get involved with Limit Break in order to have a better chance of beating the stages. Stuff that's like genuinely veteran top tier content, difficult content, endgame content, new endgame content. When you have stages like that, having a unit that reduces weakening by 1 and does something else like burst bubbles and whatever can be just as useful as having a unit that reduces by 2. Because sometimes you'll have a stage where you're weakened by 3. And 2's not going to cut it. You need 3. So you need someone that reduces by 1 and also does something else. So in those scenarios, this is going to be nice. This is going to be a good addition. Some bursted bubbles and some weakening reduction. Not saying that it's like super unique or anything. There are other units that do this sort of thing. It's just that I think it's quite nice. I think it's a nice little buddy skill. Nice little buddy skill. He's not going to be great on the front line. A nice little buddy skill. Luffy, however, I think not too shabby. Not too shabby as a front line. We're talking tank damage, which is HP, max HP based damage. Cool. And damage reduction buff for blue team members. Now we have units that weaken, but that's kind of its own archetype as a 99 luck weakener. We have a 99 luck ultimate attack damage buff. We have a 99 luck attack buff. I quite like this 99 luck damage reduction buff. I'm not saying it's as good as any of those other ones, because realistically it's not. It doesn't have as much use. But the fact that Luffy's going to do somewhat relatively competent damage with his max HP based damage, and he's going to give a buff of up to 800 if you stack it, 800 damage reduction. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's interesting. I'd be interested to see like if you could like really like burst a load of bubbles with him multiple turns in a row, or like 2 turns in a row, like how much damage reduction you could actually get out of him, how much you could actually use it. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's like super good or anything. I'm just saying it's interesting. It's something a bit different. I like it. I don't know. His passive skill, reduce the number of bubbles required to negate bind by 6. Pretty standard. Pretty okay. And ultimate attack damage buff of 16%. Pretty standard. Pretty good. It's pretty okay. It's pretty okay as a front line, I think. Pretty okay. Buddy skill. Reduce the number of turns of counter attack on all enemies by 1. Nice to have a counter attack reducer. We've got a few of them already, but always good to add to that, because compared to some of the other buff/debuff removers, not as common. Quite nice. And for 3 turns, boost the ultimate attack damage of blue and red team members goes up to 19% at max level. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. Personally, I do prefer Crollo's thing of reducing a debuff and giving you some kind of bubble control, as opposed to reducing a debuff and giving you a buff, which is what this does. But by no means bad. Just something different. It's okay. I think Luffy is probably the better frontline out of the two, and I think Crollo is probably the better support out of the two. Neither of them are really shining here. They're not like top tier, but interesting. You can try some interesting things at least. Moving on to Leorio. He has been upgraded to a 6-star character if you farm his stage. His upgrade is this kind of happens quite a lot. There's, 6%, 6%, 6%, 6%, 6%, 56, 56. But I still don't really know why they bother doing this, because even with that addition, recovery damage is interesting because not that many characters do it. I don't know that many people that would use Leorio as a frontline. He does have the benefit of being a max luck, well, possible to be max luck unit if you've got enough copies. So having a 99 luck unit that's doing 370% damage based on recovery, and the potential different things you could try with that, you could do something cool with him, but he's never going to be optimal, I don't think, not as a frontline. His passive skill boosts his recovery and makes him immune to poison. That's just gone up by 6%, so it's definitely better. It's definitely an improvement, but nothing major. His buddy skill, however, has gone down by 1 cooldown and increased by 1k heal. Which is kind of cool, you know. That's kind of the nicest buff he's got here, even though this buffed him by 112%. That's, to me, that's the nicest buff, because 10 turns for reducing the number of bubbles required to negate bind for green by 5 is pretty nice. And giving him 3k heal per turn for 2 turns. Now, considering it's for 2 turns, that means you've added 2k heal to his support here, not 1. I quite like it. I don't know. On stages where bind is a pain in the ass, having that additional heal as well when you're reducing the bind. And bear in mind, like I said before, this applies with what I said about Crollo. You'll have stages where you'll get affected by the debuff, not by the set amount that every character reduces it by, but by just a little bit more. So you'll get bound on some stages, and it'll be by like 15 or whatever, and your character that reduces it by whatever amount on their support or their passive or isn't going to be enough. And Leorio can be your additional one that you add, and you also get the heal on top. So I like the buff to his support. The rest is, I don't really see playing any part. Then again, has the front lines of characters ever really been good for these 99 luck 4-star evolutions? I said Rukia was interesting because she was freeze, but that's just because we didn't have many freeze units. It's not like she's super good or anything. So, I don't know. Usopp. Usopp has also been upgraded. I was kind of hoping he'd have like a huge upgrade because he's going from 3-star to 6-star. He's a One Piece character, remember. They do love their One Piece characters. So I figured, could be seeing a big substantial buff here. I was wrong. I was wrong. His buddy skill, to be fair, very good. Convert 10 random bubbles to green and charge your lens summon gauge by 3%. Now, when I say very good, I mean for a 3-star unit, it's very good. Obviously, we have characters like Shiryu that can literally convert bubbles to green every turn, but where Usopp maybe has a little bit of benefit, despite the fact that he takes extra turns, he converts 10 random bubbles, not 10 red and blue as Shiryu does. So if you want to convert other kinds of bubbles, this could be useful. If you want to convert block, this could be useful. And on top of that, charges your legend summon gauge by 3%. 3% isn't a lot, but it's every 3 turns, so quite nice, quite nice. The damage is just it's nothing. It means nothing. it just means nothing. And the passive, reduce the number of turns of bubble and effectiveness by 2 for this unit, and boost this unit's attack by 20%. If it was on any other unit, I would say that's not too shabby. It's okay. It's not too bad. But because it's on 3-star Usopp, who's doing this much fucking damage, it's not great. It's not great. Okay, and finally we have the Legend Summon, which I now have to change the icon for because they announced it as green and it's actually blue, and in Taiwan it's red, and I don't really know why it matters what type it is, but blue makes sense because of the skill. The skill does indeed boost the normal attack damage of blue team members. It also converts 3 red, 3 green, and 3 yellow, up to 4 actually, 4 red, 4 green, and 4 yellow, to blue, and recovers 9300 HP. Now, I don't think this is bad. Normal attack damage really hasn't got the support that it sort of deserves, because it can be quite an interesting way to do quite a lot of damage. And there are quite a few characters that can do some good damage with it. But there's not really... There's a few like characters that buff it on support and stuff, but it's not a consistent thing that they do. They're very consistent with attack up and with ultimate attack damage up, less consistent with normal attack damage buff. So kind of cool to get this as a little buff to normal attack damage, and maybe we'll get more normal attack damage buff limiteds in the future. But that's the end of this video. That's a quick review of all the new units and the new Legend Summon. And we'll obviously be back with the official news on the Kimetsu no Yaiba Feature Festival. The full news should come Tuesday. I am expecting a data download and the teaser of what's to come, the final teaser, to both of those things to roughly happen at about 12 PM JST on Tuesday, and then at 3 PM JST the full event information. So we'll do a news video on that at some point, and the event is supposed to be starting on Thursday. I will be streaming on Wednesday. I stream every Wednesday, 4 PM GMT on Twitch and YouTube. The link's in the description. So come check it out. We'll talk about the event info, which should be out at that point, and we will also be trying to beat the Catastrophe Crollo, which I have heard is incredibly easy. And people said the same thing about Luffy, and I beat him on stream in about 15 minutes. So I'm hoping Crollo's at least a little bit harder than that. If not, we're going to have to go find another stage to do, but we'll definitely be discussing the Kimetsu no Yaiba Feature Festival during that stream. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all hopefully during the stream, if not for the next news video. Bye!